All right, so in last week's video, we talked about how you should pick a lender, and the focus was on rate and cost because I think this is what people turn to first. They go through and they look at, all right, what is this going to cost me? It's a financial transaction. I get it, right? We want to make sure that we can get the best deal possible. However, the interesting part is I think that people actually gravitate more towards a feeling, and that feeling is trust and making sure that you're working with the right lender because you trust that they'll get the job done. So in today's video, part two of how you should decide on your lender and what's going to be the best lender for you. So jumping in, I think that the one of the most important parts about this is that you look to connect with someone that you trust, right? So obviously you want to make sure that when you're talking to a lender, you believe that they'll be able to not only get you a good deal, but you'll also end up at the closing table on time. Everyone will be happy. You'll be smiling. You'll walk away with keys. The reality is that people don't want a loan. I say this all the time. You don't want a loan, you want a home. You have to get a loan to get that home. So we need to make sure that ultimately you're reaching that goal and you're going to be able to buy your home. And that's, I think, that emotional attachment is there. So although I think that people will focus primarily on looking at the cost, what's your rate, what's your fees, I think underlying in the subconscious we have that feeling, we start to connect with someone. Now, when I think about outside of that connection, what's important, and when I want to talk to clients and what I think is important and what I look for in the relationships with people that I work with is going to be based off of their experience and their knowledge. You want to make sure that the lender that you're working with is looking out for your best interest, right? Are they just trying to get the deal done? Or are they actually trying to make sure that you have the best options, making sure you have an understanding or as much of an understanding as you want? There are some clients who just don't want to deal with it. They're like, great, this looks good. I don't want to think about this, get it done. But there's a lot of people who also want to make sure that they're in a position where they understand what they're getting into. This is a very big transaction, right? They say one of the largest investments people will make. So you want to make sure you feel comfortable with that. And going back to the people who say, I don't really care, I just want it done. Well, in those circumstances, in my experience, which is a lot, I've been doing this for a long time, that's where I like to slow things down a little bit and point out some of the things that they really do need to pay attention to. You want to make sure that when you're looking at the differences in getting a loan program in today's market, that you're getting the best possible situation. You don't want to miss an opportunity just because your lender was just trying to get the deal done. For example, we have a client that came through. They were working with another lender that was going to take them to the stars. I'm not going to say a name. Let's just say they were going to get there on their mode of transportation. When comparing deals, that lender convinced them that they had a better deal for them because the bottom line was lower, right? So going back to that interest rate and the costs, they were looking at the same interest rate, and at closing, they were going to need less money. So they ultimately said, okay, this must be a better deal. They didn't realize that what had happened, that lender had actually lowered their down payment, which improved the interest rate. Weird fact, in certain cases, a lower down payment could allow for a better interest rate. Well, in this issue, or in this circumstance, what they did is they went through, they lowered their down payment so the interest rate was more competitive, and they were actually still charging a buy down to get to that interest rate. Well, by the time they figured this out and they had sent me the documents so we could compare apples to apples, I showed them what was going on. But the problem is, this had been 2 days already. Interest rates move every day throughout the day. By the time we connected, interest rates had already gone up so much that there wasn't really a way for us to compete with what they had already locked in. Instead, I had to educate the clients and go through and tell them, like, listen, go back to your lender, tell them to remove this charge. This is what, fix your down payment, get everything back in line, because financially that's what made the most sense for the client. So I continued the education process, worked through it with them. Even though we're not doing the deal, I know that they're getting the best position. And you know what? When it comes time to refinance, I bet you they're going to think of me instead of the lender that led them wrong. So when you're going through, remember, experience, knowledge, this matters. You want to make sure the lender knows how to finance a condo. Condos are different. We don't just approve the buyer, we approve the condo project. And there's a lot of moving parts to that. So make sure you're working with a lender who's experienced in this. You want to make sure that if you're looking at something like a bank-owned property, well, how does that differ from just a traditional sale or a resale from someone? When you're looking at properties for new construction, for example, let's say going back to condos, you're looking at a new construction condo. A lot of people don't realize that there's a certain amount of those units that have to be sold. There are ways around this. Some lenders have ways to finance those deals. So make sure when you're working with someone on a new construction property, they understand. If it's not a condo, it's a single family home. Maybe you're a veteran and you're buying a single family home. Well, did they use termite treated wood? Do you know the ins and outs of what goes into this? So when you're going through and you're talking to your lender, make sure they take the time to understand you and what you're looking for. What is it that you're trying to accomplish with buying this home? And then from there, make sure they're asking the right questions. I know we want this to be easy. My own slogan is straightforward and easy, but there's a process. You have to go through this and you have to figure out what's the best way to get from here to there and make sure you're not missing that opportunity in the meantime. So there's a lot out there. Just make sure that you're taking your time to connect with someone, work with someone you trust, and make sure that they take the time to actually listen and try to help you get where you need to be. Make sure you tune in for our next video, part 3 of how you should pick your mortgage lender. This is one not to miss because we're going to talk about something that a lot of people don't realize that's going on. Basically, who's connecting you to your lender and why. If you like our information, please remember to hit that like button, subscribe so we can keep sharing. It helps our channel grow and helps us bring more information to help you while you're looking to buy a home or trying to help others.